Welcome into another edition of the Our Coaching Network Coaches Podcast. I am John Brice of FootballScoop.com, joined today by Dane Stevens, offensive coordinator at West Georgia, one of the five youngest coordinators on either side of the ball in Division I football. Dane, you're busy grinding for camp season, coming out of the Memorial Day holiday. We appreciate you taking some time with us.
John, I appreciate it, man. Thank you guys for having me on. Always really enjoyed watching what you guys do with the podcast and on the page, man. So really excited to be here, and thank you guys for the opportunity.
Well, thanks a lot for the kind words, and let's dive right in. You and I have gotten to know each other fairly well over the past 6 months or so, and your journey is pretty fascinating. You're from Metro Atlanta, more or less, and I'm a Southerner, being originally from East Tennessee, now residing in South Bend. But you went from Metro Atlanta to Southern Cal. Now you're back in the South. You've been a player. You transitioned into coaching. What has your journey been like? How did you get to where you are now?
Yeah, man. It's well, first of all, I'll tell you one thing. I've been very blessed by the man upstairs. I'll tell you that. Had a great family. Got to be around a lot of great coaches, great players. From high school, college. My whole life, man. So been very, very fortunate from that perspective. But like you said, grew up in Powder Springs in Marietta, Georgia, my whole life. Played football at Mount Perrin Christian for Mitch Jordan, who's been a very successful high school coach. He had a big influence on me. Just the impact he had on my life, not just as a coach, but as a man and the kind of person you want to be. So I ended up having some opportunities, man, to be a couple G5 opportunities, couple Ivy League opportunities. But at the end of the day, man, since I was a little kid, I've always wanted to play, big time college football. So, I knew at the end of the day, I felt like me going out to USC and getting that opportunity, was one that I couldn't pass up. So, decided to go out there and do that, and ended up having a great experience out there as a player. So I get there my freshman year of college, get there the summer, working out, getting ready to go to fall camp, doing all that. And then, man, we get into fall camp, and I have a really bad foot injury, end up having a surgery. Just ended up unfortunately not healing the right way. So I had after the 2013 season, I kind of was at that crossroads where it was like, man, I'm glad I had enough awareness at 17 years old to realize I probably wasn't going to play in the NFL. I'm a 6'2", barely 6'2", not very athletic O lineman. So I was like, I always knew I wanted to coach, and I felt like that was the best path for me to go on. So Steve Sarkisian was the head coach at USC at the time in 2014. He had just gotten there, and man, I asked him. I went up there after the first couple of days of spring ball when they told me they were going to have to reconstruct my foot if the screw broke. So I was like, "Well, I'm not doing that." So go up to him and ask him, man. I'm like, "Hey, is it okay if I can be a student assistant? I'll do anything. I knew I wanted to coach, man. I'll do whatever I'm asked to do." So very fortunate. He gave me that opportunity. So from 2014 to 2016, right, I was a student assistant. Then for those 3 years, 2016, we won the Rose Bowl. So I graduated in 3 years, and then Coach Clay Helton was the head coach in 16, and Coach T. Martin and Coach Tyson Helton, they were both on staff as well, and I got the opportunity to be the quarterbacks GA at USC. So that was an opportunity that, man, that I'm so grateful for, and all those guys, just how appreciative I am of them and the impact they've had on my life. And I promise you, I would not be here today if it wasn't for those guys. So end up being a GA for 3 years. So in 2019, Graham Harrell gets the offensive coordinator job, which is where kind of I got in connection with him, obviously, and then with John David Baker, who was actually the analyst on staff, and then he also brought in Seth Dagey, who's the Marshall OC now. So we were all together and kind of get introduced to the air raid philosophy, that offense, that way of doing things. So got the opportunity to be with them from 19 to 21. 20 and 21, I was an analyst. Got the opportunity to be an analyst there. And then after that, unfortunately, we got fired. And then in 22 and 23, got to go be the assistant QB coach at Ole Miss. So Just been fortunate, man. The one thing that I can say about my journey, my situation, and all the things that have happened for me, man, is if it wasn't for all the people in my life that have given me opportunities and believed in me, and all those different types of things, man, I promise you, I am the least responsible for why I'm in the situation I'm in. So been very blessed, man.
Appreciate the humility there. That speaks to your character. I've got to ask, you said you always knew you wanted to coach. Do you remember how young you were knowing that you wanted to coach? And then also, what do you credit for having the maturity to realize, hey, I better make this transition into coaching now rather than continuing to try and fight and play?
Yeah, so to answer the first question about, kind of when I knew I wanted to coach was, so I'm not the son of a coach. My uncle or grandfather wasn't some big time ball coach or a GM or anything like that. So I didn't really have an end of the business from that perspective of it. So, it was just something just since I was as far back as I can remember, man. It was like the thing that I always loved doing was just always loved football, man. As far back as I can remember, with my both my grandfathers, my dad, my uncles, it was just football was just always what was around, what was on TV, what we did. And I knew from a really early age, man, that I didn't whether it was going to be me playing or whether it was going to be me coaching or being involved in some way, I knew from a very young age that football was how I wanted to make my living and support myself and be and just live that dream out, get to have that passion, get to do what you love to do for your job. So that's the biggest thing. And then the second point, as far as like the maturity piece of it, maturity is probably the wrong word, but I think it was just, I think it seemed to me, I don't think, especially looking back now, it's not very hard to me. Like looking back on it, I'm like, well, I just literally looked in the mirror and I'm like, man, I'm an undersized, not very athletic offensive lineman. I'm just like I can either go get beat up on scout team or something or whatever like that, or shoot, man, let's just go get a head start on your career, and um, I just felt like at the time that was just the logical thing to do. Maybe I'm smarter than or wiser than my years, but I don't really look at it that way. I honestly felt like it was a common sense decision. So
It wasn't easy though. You made the decision, but you really had to toil. You really had to grind.
oh yeah.
Share some of those rudimentary tasks that you had to perform at USC. I think you made copies, you wrote play charts, you fetched
Oh,
breakfast. What were some of the highlights or the lowlights, depending on your perspective there?
well, I can tell you this, okay, no matter how tedious or not fun the task was, is there was never any low lights. Like it was, and I guess the one thing that I always looked at it was like you know the the paying your dues part of it, or whatever you want to call it, cutting your teeth in the business, however you want to say it. To me, the biggest thing was always like I knew that if I just outworked people and if I did what I was supposed to do, did things the right way, be a good person, I always believed, I should say, that at the end of the day, being that way is going to ultimately prevail in the long run. That was kind of my thought process about it. But man, is copies and coffee. To start with that is the I've made more cups of coffee than the baristas at Starbucks. I promise you. But no, it was it's just all part of the process, man. And I'm appreciative of all those things that you were asked to do at 17, 18, 19 years old. Because I'll tell you what, me going through that and getting to experience all those different things is when you do get very fortunate to be in a role like I am now, is you appreciate the journey and the process of it so much. And the thing that I want to highlight too within that is, even though, yeah, like you're doing odd jobs, you're doing stuff that no one would ever consider to be really fun, but during that process, man, you're learning, or at least I was learning so much football, like learning a lot of ball, learning how to, as far as, coach your position, run a meeting, how to recruit, all those different things, man. And like I highlighted so many of the coaches, man, like why, I don't know, but I was just very fortunate for people to take an interest in me and want to put into me what I'm, trying to put out and show. So it was just, very, very appreciative of that, and it was a great experience, and one I would not trade for the world. It really, really wouldn't.
We're going to talk a little bit more about some of your influences here in just a couple of minutes, and we'll talk more about the kind of exciting offense that I know you're going to implement. But I want to ask you right now, you've got Southern Cal on your resume. You had 2 consecutive seasons at Ole Miss under Lane and that staff, where he's done things in Oxford that have never been done by that Rebels program before. What made West Georgia the right fit for you right now? And tell us a little bit more about the program as it transitions into FCS ball and really is turning a lot of heads.
Yeah, so a couple things really, really excited me about this opportunity. Number one was, the fact that it's going to Division 1, okay, the jump to FCS, that obviously was a huge part of it. And then number two, man, was just the opportunity to get to run my own offense, get to call the shots. And number three, it is nice, as far as much as I've traveled, been around the country, done all these things, getting back to Georgia, getting back close to family, really was was a huge aspect of it. But the thing over and all those things were the stuff that you looked at like before you took the job, before I went on the interviews, all those different things. But at the end of the day, man, when we got into the process of it, the interview process, all those different things, and I got to know the people here, is the number one by far reason why this job was so attractive, on top of all those other things, was seeing what the vision of this university is, of our president, of our athletic director, and getting the opportunity to work for someone of the caliber as our head coach, Joel Taylor, who, to me, I mean, I think he is as had a ton of success as a defensive coordinator at Mercer, Lenore Ryan, all these places. He's a phenomenal defensive coach, and someone, even like when we played at Ole Miss last year, and we had success against him, but you just turn the tape on, man, and it's like, I don't know who this guy is. I don't know much about him, but he's a heck of a football coach. And this 5 months getting to work with him, man, and getting to work for him and getting to learn from him, not just from a football standpoint, but from how to lead, how to run a team, how to do all these different things that go into the coordinator role, the head coach role that's beyond the X's and O's. It's just been a phenomenal experience, and one that I'm super appreciative of. And like I said, I think he is as good as there is. I mean, he really does a great job. So, and very, very lucky to work for him.
You referenced the fact that Mercer played at Ole Miss very early in the season last year. Did
Mhm.
you happen to speak with Coach at that time, or what do you remember just about any interactions you had with that Mercer staff, or just the way the game unfolded? And were you thinking at your time, at the time, there's some guys over there I wouldn't mind working with down the road?
At the time we played him, no, that was not the case. But the one thing that I remember is just is this is a credit to him. We had a good offensive game against him and stuff like that. But but a big part of why we did that was because we treat like because you watch the tape over the last 2 years of what he did at Mercer, and you're like, man, can so many times, like when you're at a Power Five program and you're playing an FCS school, you're playing a lower tier school, or a lower level school, I should say, is we didn't do this, but sometimes you just naturally, the players aren't as into it, the coaches, like, be more of a simple game plan. And we saw the success they had had against Alabama the year before. I mean, all these different things against Auburn, and we're like, shoot, man, we can't treat them like we got to treat them like an SEC opponent, and that to me is a credit to him, and what a great job he did as a coach. And you just left that game and went into the game plan just being like, man, this dude's a really good coach, a really good football coach. So, I'll say, and I'm very excited for the season and the future here at West Georgia. So,
You referenced Sark, Graham Harrell, Seth Dagey. I mean, you've had the chance to be around and learn from and have great people pour into you. Lane Kiffin, obviously, Charlie Weiss. What are some of the things that you've maybe taken from all of those people? And I know specifically you and I've talked in the past about the job that Lane Kiffin has done with the the culture in his locker room, especially as he's been so successful in the transfer portal. If you wouldn't mind also expounding on that a little bit.
Oh yeah, not a problem. So, for me, I'll say this. I'll start with Coach Kiffin. Man, he's as great of a coach as he is, as far as the X's and O's and the game planning and all that stuff, which his reputation obviously precedes itself in that regard. The thing that he does, in my opinion, at an elite level, better than probably anybody in the country, to be honest with you, is his ability to get so many different types of people, coaches, players, everybody, that all have different backgrounds, different ethnicities, different goals, just different agendas, whatever it might be, and to get them to go all in the same direction to a common goal. I mean, it really is. I mean, it is just, I mean, you got players from all over the country, portal, high school, and it just works, man. And so much of that is the environment that he creates. It's a fun environment, but at the end of the day, it's all about winning. It's all about football. And if you love the process, you love the grind, you will thrive at that university. And that's a credit to him. As far as Coach Weiss, the by far the most detailed person I've ever worked for. His preparation, his process, how he does things, how he sees the game, it is elite, phenomenal at what he does. And then obviously at Ole Miss, and I worked with him at USC, but with John David Baker, who's the Eastern Carolina OC, who I have as much respect for him as anybody in this profession. The one thing that I'll say about him that, and this ties back into working with Graham Harrell, is, man, it is just, at the end of the day, it is, we're better at what we do than you are at what you do. Okay, which that's something that we preach to our kids over and over again. It's like, doesn't matter what defense they run, what they do. At the end of the day, we're gonna run our stuff. We're gonna do what we do, and that philosophy and that way of thinking, when you instill that in your kids, you build such a confidence, such a belief in them, especially when they start to see it work. Like, you're running the same stuff over and over again, and it continues to work no matter what they do. And you keep preaching that, the kids at some point, when they realize it, they're like, dang, coach, this works. So that part of it. And then Seth Dagey, obviously same way. He's one of my close friends, and just does a tremendous job. And I hope, so I think they'll have a great year at Marshall. And so really been very lucky, man. Worked for a lot of really good people, so.
You referenced a couple of dudes there that I'm super excited to see them completely run their own shows this year, and that's Seth at Marshall, with Charles Huff, one of my favorite head coaches out there, and then JDB has a chance to do some big things at East Carolina in a key
No
season
doubt.
for them. So it's really exciting to be watching all three of you and seeing you sort of on the horizon of your careers, and what happens from there. He is Dane Stevens, offensive coordinator for the West Georgia Wolves. I am John Brice of Football Scoop. This is the Our Coaching Network podcast. Dane, I wanted to ask you, you referenced that detail-oriented nature of Charlie Weiss Jr. Do you have one or two examples of that, or just moments that stick out to you where you say, wow, this guy is seeing this and remembering this, and I've got to make sure I take that with me moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say it's just like I wouldn't say there was like one specific thing. I just think more so of just his ability to be able to compartmentalize a lot of different information, and just the day in, day out consistency. That's what, whether you won, lost, didn't matter. Like, it was just the same person. It was the same process every single day. And for me, that was to see that day in, day out, because I worked so closely with him and Coach Kiffin, and to see that, just that consistency was just very really unique, to see that like someone can have that much focus and uh that consistently. So that would be the thing that I would say that just made him really, really unique.
Speaking of the process, this is maybe the most exciting question for me of this podcast, and that is, what is the process for Dane Stevens in West Georgia, both as you make this transition to FCS, and then specifically as you implement your first ever offense? What do you want your offense to be? What can people expect out of this West Georgia offense orchestrated by you?
Well, first thing I'll say is, man, it's not my offense. It's the West Georgia offense. Like, so, but the one thing I will say about it though is our mantra. Okay. It's all gas, no brakes. Okay. That's what we live by. That's our motto. And the biggest thing, man, is I want it to be an exciting brand of football. I want the fans when they come to the stands. I want to make sure that we put something on the field that our alumni, that our fans, something they're gonna be proud to watch and be entertaining. So that's the biggest thing, man. It's a really exciting time here at West Georgia. And I think you really look at it. It's like, all right, you take what we're gonna do on offense, okay, and then you combine it with who I think is one of the best defensive coaches in all of football. Is now you have that combination of something that could be really, really special. You know what I'm saying? So that's the biggest thing, man. It's gonna be really exciting, gonna be fast, gonna be a lot of fun. So it'll be a good time to watch and be a good time to watch in the fall.
Awesome. Well, we appreciate you taking the time out to visit with us on this latest edition of the Our Coaching Network podcast. Once again, he is Dane Stevens, offensive coordinator at West Georgia. I'm John Brice of Football Scoop. We're going to be bringing you more of these over the course of the summer, but bringing you one of college football Division I's youngest offensive coordinators to jumpstart things back here as we get ready to transition to June. Has been an exciting time. Dane, thanks for visiting with us.
Yes, sir, John. I appreciate it and hope y'all have a great rest of your week. Thank y'all for the opportunity.